This story is why I would never buy an old house or a house that was rumored to have any kind of history in it, especially negative history. This story comes from a woman that lived in Germany. It begins, in the 90s, my dad bought an old house in Germany that had a barn attached to it. The first few years were totally fine. In 2003, my dad started to remodel the house. That's when strange things started to happen. First, it was just weird little things such as banging, things falling over, water faucets being turned on, or toilets flushing. We just shrugged it off, saying it's an old house, blah blah. I never felt comfortable there, to be honest. I always heard something right above my room in the attic. Sometimes it sounded like furniture being moved, but there was only 2 or 3 chairs up there and a really heavy old oak closet. It was huge. Dad told us it's probably just squirrels. Pretty big squirrels if you ask me. Well, time went by with things like that going on. I met my now husband on MySpace and we Skyped every night. Due to the time difference between our locations, as he lived in the US, I usually had to chat with him in the early morning hours at my local time. One morning, my now husband said, "Oh, they must be up early." I said, "Who?" He said he saw someone just walked behind me through the hallway. I felt my heart stop. No one was up at 3 a.m. As I turned to the hallway, the whole fixture of the living room curtain, which was mounted to the wall, just fell off. I got really scared. My husband said, "Babe, just go and check if everyone's asleep and then go to bed," ending the call there. As soon as I was upstairs, I checked, but everyone was sleeping. From there, it kept getting worse and worse. In the morning, all kitchen cabinets and drawers were open. The basement door was open, and that door was always locked because I had an old well down there. At this point, everyone got uneasy. It even happened when we had visitors over. Lights would flicker, and cabinet doors would shut on their own. One of my mom's friends is Native American and is very spiritual. She said she talked to her about it, and she would be more than happy to come over and do a cleansing. My mom said absolutely, but I decided to call a Catholic priest, and I waited for him to call me back. He called and said it wasn't the first time he was called to this address, and he won't come back. He was honestly pretty upset that the sellers didn't mention why they never kept any tenants for longer than a few months. He apologized and said there was nothing he could do. My mom asked him if he at least knows what happened or what it is the reason he wouldn't come back. He said all he knows is that around 1900 a farmer and his wife owned the house and land. The wife always wanted children but never was able to get pregnant. They were both lovely people. One day her husband left the house to go to the market. A little while later, the wife heard lots of screaming as someone came to her door to let her know that her husband sadly was ran over in town and died. Ever since that day, she became bitter, especially unfriendly to any kids she came across, and didn't want to talk to anybody anymore. Sadly, she died bitter and alone in this house. Mom was like, "Oh, that's great. Thanks anyways." After that, for a while, not one thing happened. Everything was quiet, almost back to normal, you would say, until my sister-in-law announced that she was pregnant. And it all started again, but much more aggressive. Windows opened, dishes flew out of the cabinets, stuff was thrown down the stairs. The closer it got to the birth of her child, the crazier it got. It got so bad that both of my sisters slept with me in my room. One night I heard my brother scream. We ran into his room and he said a shadow figure came down the stairs from the attic. The stairs to the attic happened to be right where his bathroom was. He said the shadow went right under the baby crib and it fell over. From that night on, we all slept together in the living room. The next day, my mom called her friend. At this point, we were scared shitless. Even my dad, who's the biggest skeptic ever, was scared. The next day, this beautiful lady came over with my mom's friend. She just looked at us and said it's feeding off all of your fear. We haven't slept right in months. Before she went inside to do her cleansing, she asked if we all wanted to go in with her or wait. I assume we were all scared for her and we all decided to go in with her. Before we went in, she cleansed or blessed us in her beautiful native language and gave us some sort of object to put in our pocket to protect us. I can't remember the name of the object. She walked in and said eerily that the presence is strong and it doesn't like her being there. We went from room to room, She had a tray with several different items on it, sage and something that was already burning, a feather and something else, but I don't remember what it was. As we approached my brother's room, she kept getting louder and louder. I didn't understand her native language, but in between she would tell us it's trying to hide and it feels cornered. Next stop was the attic. One by one we started to go up. All of a sudden the door swung wide open and a 2x4 came full speed flying right at us and almost hit my brother-in-law right in the head. And then a loud boom. It felt like the house shook. My siblings went out with my dad and brother-in-law. Once we were up there, we seen the big oak cabinet that was pushed over and the 2x4 was ripped out of the wooden structure from the roof. The lady got hectic and said it's not here anymore, it must be downstairs. The only room we haven't been in was the laundry room. She went in there alone and she was loud. Everything felt so loud. After what felt like an eternity, she came out and said it put up a fight. She had ashes all over her and looked so drained. She said it kept blowing the ashes on her, trying to get the sacred fire off the tray. I'll never forget that day ever. This kind lady didn't want anything for her work. She came back a few days later to tell us that the lady who owned the house was trying to protect us, especially my sister-in-law, since the thing was after her unborn baby. I moved to Tennessee a few years later. My siblings went to college across Germany, so my parents sold the house. And that was the last we ever heard of anything from it.